guy, very tight-fisted with money. And really, in real life, he was a great humanitarian and very generous. But on his radio and TV show, his butler, what was his butler's name? Anyone remember?
Rochester.
Very good, Mark. Rochester, good Paul. Rochester was always trying to get a raise from Mr. Benny and never could. So he retaliated by sitting in a hammock all day while Jack Benny did the work. So it was a very clever show, and they had wonderful writers, a wonderful script, and you seem to remember everything about Jack Benny. How about the sponsor? The sponsor said LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine.
Oh my goodness, Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And the announcer on the show, his name was Don Wilson. Remember, a big fat guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. You don't want a small fat guy, you want a big fat guy. So anyways, Don Wilson would break into the scene, you know, they were doing a comedy scene. He would walk right in and shout LSMFT, and then he'd get off. That was comedy too. So they even incorporated the cigarette ads into the comedy. So that was great. And Jack Benny on the radio, he had such interesting neighbors. His neighbors were Phil Harris. Remember funny Phil Harris? And his wife Alice Faye. And Ronald Coleman, the actor, lived on the other side, who was always being driven crazy by Jack Benny, because Jack Benny was always asking to borrow sugar and cornflakes because he didn't want to spend on food. So the show was just great, and we like to remember Jack Benny on his birthday. And not the only birthday today. His name was Fritz Lowe. Do you remember Fritz? Frederick Lowe. What was his profession? Anyone know that name? Frederick Lowe. You might not know his name, but you know his music. He was a wonderful composer, and with his partner, Alan J. Lerner and Lowe made the most beautiful music. They wrote a show, Paint Your Wagon. I talk to the trees, but they don't listen to me. Everything they wrote was so beautiful, even in their minor shows. In their major shows, there was one called My Fair Lady. Paul, I got to do it. My Fair Lady. There, I got my Jerry Lewis out today. My Fair Lady was Lerner and Lowe. They took that wonderful plot from George Bernard Shaw, Pygmalion, put music to it, brought Eliza Doolittle to the screen and to the stage, and Professor Henry Higgins, and it was magic. But it wasn't for the, if it wasn't for the music of Lerner and Lowe and those wonderful compositions of Fritz Lowe, we wouldn't be singing, I could have danced all night, I could have danced all night, and still have begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I've never done before. I'll never know what made it so exciting. Why all at once my heart took flight. I only know when she began to dance with me. I could have danced, danced, danced all night. What a song. Did you like that? I think it's the first time a guy ever sang it. Usually it's sung by a lady. But no shame, right? I just burst right into I could have danced all night like I was Eliza Doolittle. And what was Eliza's dancing about? Thank you, Mildred. What was Eliza so happy about? Because finally, after months of trying, she could say to Professor Higgins, the rain in Spain. I like your version. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain. He was putting marbles in her mouth. She was driving her crazy, because the whole idea of My Fair Lady was to take a girl with a Cockney accent from London and make her speak beautiful English and be very dignified. And she was sold flowers. So finally, after months, she could say it, and she started becoming very dignified. Eventually, too dignified and beautiful for Henry Higgins' taste. The worm turned, as they said. And all along, she had a boyfriend who was so shy that he would walk up and down the street but couldn't knock on the door to ask Eliza for a date. His name was Freddie. He had a nice voice, and he sang a beautiful song written by our birthday boy, Frederick Lowe. I have often walked down this street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. All at once am I, several stories high, knowing I'm on the street where you live. Are there lilac trees in the heart of town? Can you hear a lark in any other part of town? Does enchantment pour out of every door? No, it's just on the street where you live. We're going higher at 10:30. And I, the towering feeling, just to know somehow you are near. Good. The overpowering feeling that any second you may suddenly appear. People stop and stare. Good, Mildred. They don't bother me, for there's nowhere else on earth that I would rather be. Let the time go by. I don't care if I can be here on the street where you live. What a song. Lerner and Lowe. We like to honor our birthday people, and Frederick Lowe is someone to honor in the world of music. We have two famous composers today. Not only Frederick Lowe was born on this day, but his name, once again, you might not be familiar with the name, but the music you'll remember. His name was Harold Arlen. Do you know that name?
Arlen.
Harold Arlen, A-R-L-E-N. Harold Arlen, at one time in the 20s, thought to be even more promising a composer than George Gershwin in New York City, a Jewish boy from New York City like Gershwin. And Arlen was just remarkable in the way that he would fuse jazz and classical music into his own compositions. And he went a different way than George Gershwin, but he wrote a little thing called Every time he wrote that, whenever you hear that beautiful melody, it's the music of Harold Arlen. Should we sing it? Sure. We'll get away from the street where we live, which is Tui, and we're going over the rainbow, okay?
Okay.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. I'm flying. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
I don't know about, how about use yours?
Thank you. Over the Rainbow,
Yeah.
written by another birthday gentleman, born on February 14th, Valentine's Day, Harold Arlen. Now, for his love song, Over the Rainbow is not exactly a love song. It's a wistful song. It's the most optimistic song ever written in the English language. Actually, Arlen's partner was also a nice Jewish boy from New York City. All the songwriters from Tin Pan Alley had America singing, but his partner was named Yip Harburg. And Yip Harburg wrote all the words we just sang from Over the Rainbow, the beautiful melody by Harold Arlen. And Yip Harburg was so regretful that he wrote the most pessimistic song ever written when the stock market crashed, that he made up for it by writing the most optimistic song, Over the Rainbow. And
Was it good over
well,
the rainbow?
the pessimistic song was, once I built a railroad, made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Buddy, can you spare a dime? He always felt so bad he wrote that because it made everyone so sad. So 10 years later, he wrote Over the Rainbow.